right, guys. So I have Ryan Ogden here from Perigi Partners. Ryan and I have known each other for a number of years, one of our members at the Gents Place. And one of the things, Ryan, when we met a while back that really impressed me about you was your commitment to customer service and the customer experience. You know, you help businesses take it to the next level in terms of their customer experience. And, you know, as a guy that is passionate and in love with trying to do whatever we can to get, set a new standard. I love talking to guys like you that, that's what you do for a living. So that's super cool. And, what I wanted to talk to you about today was, we were talking pre-show is, a lot of people feel stuck right now and they're trying to figure out a way to just get unstuck and kind of change their mindset. I know you talk with a lot of business owners. YPO is one of your clients, which is an incredible group of business owners and entrepreneurs, presidents of companies. What are you seeing right now in terms of positive shifts? Can you give us some examples or just some perspectives that you've heard over the last few weeks?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. It's fun to be both a customer of your business, the Gents Place, and becoming a friend of yours and just cheering for you along the way. So it's really cool. So that's why I'm glad to be part of this and what you're doing. And I'm, on the one hand, it was a nice surprise to see what you're doing. On the other hand, it wasn't a surprise at all because this is the kind of innovation that you do. So, why don't I start with an example of what you've done, and then of course there are other businesses and executives who've done some similar things. So, some folks, depending on their industry or what have you, were just hit right away, right, with the coronavirus. You were a good example where your municipality said, hey, all businesses of a certain means need to shut down. And then there were some essential services you were able to keep going. But, just kind of pushing through that, figuring out in the storm how to respond. That's kind of one camp. Another camp, I'd say, kind of had the rug pulled from under them, and that maybe they were just about to launch something. They were just, headed to market with something either big. And in fact, my firm it ran into that to some extent. And so then it was a bit of a stun, and created a pause, and we had to regroup, and everything's been moving so quickly too. So it's been interesting to see how folks pivot or push through or take a step back and regroup it, but there's not a lot of time for any of us to do it. And so some of what we're seeing, you mentioned customers, so I'll say on the customer front, and from just a pure sort of customer experience or CX mindset, as a discipline, and CX is an actual profession and discipline. When you think of it that way, there are a few things. One is a shift, not totally away from the numbers and that we're going to forget about the numbers, but you have to realize that this is such a freak anomaly time that why would you even compare your numbers to whatever benchmarks you had previously? So whatever data you were looking at, whether it's net promoter score or, turns per table or server or whatever your industry metric is, it's probably a good time to maybe entirely set them aside, or at least give them a deprioritized focus. Look at maybe fewer metrics. Like I said, maybe even just hit pause for a while, and really shift your focus more into hand to hand. How can I get in and help, even specific? So working more on the response with customers and figuring out how can I specifically help. Even there's someone, let me help them. What do they need? And figuring out in your business, what does that look like? And so like you did a good job of reaching out. Even this is a great example where you reached out to your customers and you said, hey, here's something I'm doing. This won't apply to all of you, but who wants to come and help with something? I didn't even know what I was signing up for. I wasn't sure we were going to record this or anything, but so those are some of the things I'm seeing. Just a couple of quick tips and where to put your focus. And really for the businesses who are already close to their customer, this hasn't been an easier transition. And for others that maybe were in process of doing it or had just, for whatever reason, grown away from their customer, it's a lot hard. I mean, it needs to be very unnatural. They need to push themselves to great lengths to do things to get close to their customer and figure out what their needs are. And I mean, I'll pause there, but several
Yeah,
other examples too.
that's great, man. And I know your business has, like many others, had to have been adversely impacted. How are you personally, and you have a family, and how are you personally kind of processing things and getting yourself to a better place? Because the initial shock, everyone was kind of like, "Oh my God, am I going to have to close? What am I going to do?" Now that we're a few weeks into this, how have you positively shifted your mindset and your behaviors in your business?
Yeah, sure. And like I said, I think some more of the retail, any sort of retail or hospitality industry, those folks, I mean, you just had a clear and present danger, right? I mean, it was immediate. You had to deal with it. Um, Others, maybe more in the services business, there was a little more of a pause. We weren't sure what all the impact was going to be. And so for Perigee in particular, we were actually just launching a business system and more media forward content. We actually buy courses. It's a bit of a shift from traditional business consulting. And although we see them married really well together, and you know we have a great vision for how this is coming to market, uh, but it's definitely an innovation for us, and it would be like anyone else bringing a whole new innovative offering to market, and then this happens. And so yeah, it's a challenge of, well, gosh, I mean, even just doing regular business development and calling people, and our business development is very social. So it looks like meetings and lunches and coffee or events, and you know, none of that was happening. And yet a lot of my clients and network were drowning. And so it would be really tone deaf. So for us, there was a bit of a pause. There was probably 2 weeks. If I'm completely honest, I'm not really that proud of it, to be honest with you. But yeah, a week or two, there was some time where we just, what is the right next step? We weren't
Mm.
sure. And so, but then some things started coming together, and we started seeing, hey, we have a network. There are people who are living in somewhat in isolation, especially with SMBs. You know, they don't necessarily have the network and resources that bigger corporations and enterprise executives might have. And so they are not, you know, maybe feeling some of the doom and gloom, or starting to believe that, you know, especially as an entrepreneur, how quickly that can enter into your mindset. And so what we saw is, hey, we have a network, and we actually have a network we have people in our network who have massive networks as well, great resources. Let's collect these people together and create a format where we can, kind of what you're doing through these videos, but a little different venue, where we can give people perspective. We can help them see. Really boils down to two things. What are you thinking? What are you doing? And letting them hear from their peers, other executives, other CEOs, like businesses, to help. And I didn't mention it, but another thing that you get through that is connections and resources. And before the video started, I thought of 3 people to introduce you to. And so, you know, those are the kinds of things, not just ideas, but hey, here's something that will actually help you in your business. And so, yeah.
I love that. And by the way, I haven't gotten back to you yet, but I'll take you up on the offer to be on a panel on one of your virtual roundtables. So sign me up for that. Let me know how I can do that. But I
Great.
like the idea of just looking at your network and your email list, your contacts in your phone as an asset in your business, and how do you get a return on those assets. And I love the concept of, like we did here, is reaching out and bringing people together, getting some good content, and pushing that out to the rest of your clients and your peers, because people have so many questions right now. There's way more questions than there are answers. You know, just on applying for a PPP loan, you know, people are still confused, and now it's over, and it's, you know, you can't get funding anymore, but what's the next round look like? And so I like the idea of just bringing people together to get some answers and some discussion, because there's no shortage of questions right now. What, you know, especially like YPO and with some of these other business owners that have been successful for so long, have there been any, you know, shifts that have, you know, kind of inspired you, where maybe someone's business went down to zero, but they got into a new line of work, or they're able to start bringing in some revenue? So some positive shifts just from a business operations perspective.
Yeah, there's just so many come to mind. And of course, I want to honor confidentiality on some of these too. So, well, I want to honor confidentiality on all of them, but not all of them are confidential. So, so I'm just kind of parsing through that. I think one that just leaps to mind is a good friend of mine who they had actually just received a round of investment. They're in the transportation business, they're in the mobility business. And so, they're all about moving people from point A to point B. And in the midst of all this, and they said, hey, we can actually get, because we're our distribution channel, our manufacturing we have in China and all that, we actually can use our supply chain for PPE, for personal protection equipment, and masks and things. And so so they started doing that. And it's funny, I think as it's turned out, it's actually turned into decent business for them also. But their motive was, we just want to jump in, roll up our sleeves, and serve people, because this is what we see that we can do. We have, if people are having trouble getting that, we can get it. And so I think that's been a really nice kind of pivot, or whatever you want to call it, really innovative story. Another, actually just heard yesterday, was through a friend in Atlanta he's an angel investor. I'll just tell you, his name's Charlie Paparelli, and he hosts a similar venue. And he's just a really well-known investor in Atlanta. And one of his attendees was telling his story about how he was a former consultant from Deloitte, and his business now, as an entrepreneur, he serves the construction industry and commercial construction, and doing project management. And he has software that does that. Well, he felt like, I can't call people and sell software. This doesn't make any sense. But they just take in investment money as well, and we have a responsibility to our investors. What do we do? And so he said, I'm just going to see how I can help. I mean, I know their business. See, he's a good example of, he was close to his customer. He understood his customers. So I'm just going to produce like checklists, and here's what you should be doing. Here's what you should be thinking about. And so but he wasn't trying to sell that. He just said, I want to serve you. I want to help you. Have you thought about this? And he's ended up having his largest sale ever. Just closed this week, of all weeks, right? I mean, this is,
wow.
You hear a lot of doom and gloom out there. He just closed his largest sale in the history of his business this week. Is because he shifted. And I want to see, when the dust settles, I want to return and say, so are you changing the way you're selling forever now? Or, I don't know, I don't know his business, so I don't know that he was doing anything wrong before, but it's just interesting that they shifted to to lead with serving. And then they had, way more sales when they weren't trying to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I love that, man. Well, specific to, one of the last things I want to talk to you about on the show is just specific to your business in your consulting work with enhancing that customer experience. Is there anything for businesses that are completely down right now, where they have an abundance of time to think about how to retool, reinvent? What advice do you have for those businesses that are shut down? They have a lot of time to think about customer experience. What are some things that they could do potentially right now, or just start to look at or research to help increase that when they do open back up?
Yeah, sure. So one, especially for entrepreneurs, because you can tend to be a little more isolated, a little more on an island, again, versus say like corporate America. It's a little, in fact, a lot of my corporate America network are buried more than, they just have Zoom after Zoom after Zoom video conference. They're just stacked up, and they're busier than they've ever been, kind of in this storm, but not as much for entrepreneurs. So I'd say, especially, let me speak to them for a minute, especially for the entrepreneurs in the example you mentioned, the scenario where, maybe they're sort of like, what do I do with this newfound time? I'd say, if you still have newfound time, those are the alarms on your dashboard that are blaring. If you're having trouble, if you feel anxious or restless, I don't want to feed your anxiety, but I do want you to recognize the blinking lights and the blaring. You should not have downtime. And so you should figure out a way to make this productive time. And so I'll give you some, and I'm not going to just leave you there. I'll tell you that what you should be doing is finding out what is everyone else doing, because man, I've done it myself. I've seen it happen in others. There's enlightenment. there's resource, there's idea, motivation, encouragement, everything out there if you can just plug into a good executive network. And so I think what's so important is if you find yourself in any sort of isolation and you have this extra time, it's critical that you plug in to what's happening out there. I mean, you mentioned the CARES Act and some of the funding. And I mean, I heard yesterday, I haven't read it anywhere yet, but I heard, this is a good example of through my network, I heard the SBA is already running out of funding.
That's done.
So
No funding.
It's funny, I went and looked, I didn't see any articles about it, but yeah, so it's done. So what does that mean? And gosh, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, wasn't it 2 Fridays ago, I think, was the CARES Act was passed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you look at just when you're in crisis mode, things are changing so quickly. It's just critical to plug in, see what's happening, because opportunities are just passing you by if you're not plugged in. And then like I said earlier, be close to your customer, hold loosely to what you know, and go with new curiosity to your customer and find out, how can I help you, and put revenue aside. And then, like the story I told a minute ago, you might be surprised and actually find more opportunities. So just go in with a coaching mindset. Hey, how can I help you through this? Here are some things I've thought of in advance that might help you. And whatever that is, whether it's as our customer, we've taken some action to make things easier on you, or as our prospect, or as our, some future customers, we've thought about just ways that we can help you in this time, and to help you prepare in your emerging. So I'd say if you have downtime, be using it to be getting out there, both kind of with your executive peer network, and also with your customers. Get close to your customers. Do a call campaign. Do a contact. Not the one that we've all received these at this point, where they just say, "Hey, we're just calling to say hi. We're here to help you." You can do better than that. If that's all you did, at least you'd be making some contact. But you can do better than that. You should be debriefing and saying, "Hey, what did you hear? What are you learning?" Having little meetings, little huddles in between the calls with your team, saying, what can we be doing? What can we be offering? How can we help people?
Yeah, I mean, just one of our values at the Gents Place is serve first. And I've gotten a couple of LinkedIn messages that I really appreciated. One in which I was able to actually get some value from and give value to somebody else, where I just got a message from someone I knew that said, "Hey man, I know it's tough right now. How can I help?" And that was it. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have a mask supplier? Do you have this? Do you know someone at the news? And, sure enough, on one of those, I got a couple of those messages like, "Oh yeah, I do have a connection for you." I was able to make that right away. And then I've also received messages on LinkedIn again, where it's like, "Hey, it looks like you're connected with so-and-so. I just got laid off, but I was thinking about making a pivot into this industry." And I was able to help somebody very quickly make a connection. And so I just like the idea of saying, how can I be of service right now, especially when we have an abundance of time? Many of us do. I think it's a great place to start.
Selling should always be serving. In fact, a former client of mine years ago, we had a program, and they even adopted the mantra that sales is service and service is sales. That was kind of their mantra, to help them shift and adopt this mindset that we sell through serving. By serving, that's how we sell. And you can do that one of two ways. One is you can just forget all the selling and just go serve, and surprises will happen, like we've been talking about and you just mentioned. You can also create a sales process that is service oriented. And like with this client, we said, "Hey, we want you as their customer, we want you to walk through a process with us. We're going to lead you through, and it's a consultative process to help you in your business. And then sure, along the way, as we're walking you through this process, there are opportunities for us to further help you with the stuff that we sell." But it really is a secondary mindset, and it was a incredibly successful sales approach. So I think what we're seeing
Yeah, I was just saying, just a great reminder, like you said, that it's always been that way, but now more than ever, it's a great reminder that we sell by adding value. People give us money because of the value that we add, not because we've asked for something, right? Or pushed something on somebody else.
I think you took my words. I was going to say, in this climate especially, I think what we're just seeing is that principle is just put in the spotlight. And so for the folks who are serving first, they're able to operate better. And perhaps that's some of the folks who are stunned or not sure how to operate. Maybe they haven't been doing that, and this is an opportunity for them to be more
Yeah.
oriented.
Totally, man. Totally, man. Well, we'll leave it at that. Is that, if you are frozen, think about what assets you have, intellectual capital, knowledge, experience, and just how to give that to somebody else. It may turn into the biggest sale like one of your clients they've ever had. It may turn into goodwill. It may turn into just making you feel a sense of gratitude and positivity because you helped somebody else in a time of need. So it seems like a win across the board. Ryan, I appreciate what you're doing at Perigee. And as I mentioned before, we're going to roll this into another kind of a full-time show in the future. So we'll have you back on and dive deeper into your business on the next one. But I appreciate your time today, and send me an invite or register me for the roundtable.
Will do. Thank you. And obviously, I'm looking forward to getting in and getting my haircut. I'm way overdue.
You and me both, man. That's why I got this bad boy on. All right, man. Have a good one. See
Okay,
ya.
you too. All right. Bye.